All right, I believe I have an interesting interview for you guys today. So much is going on. We've got the Bidens deciding to step down, or maybe they were forced out by the Obamas and the Pelosi's. But either way, I have a great guest to go through some stories with me, Lunden Roberts. Lunden, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, some background. Lunden is the author of Out of the Shadows: My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. You dated Hunter Biden. You have a child with Hunter Biden, and yet the president and his wife Jill seem to hope that you didn't exist. They don't want to acknowledge that you have this beautiful granddaughter of theirs, and so I want to get into that. And I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
So I guess the first question that I would have is just from reading up on you. You grew up in the South.
Mhm.
You were a great basketball player. How do you end up with the vice president's son, who ends up becoming the president of the United States? How did you and Hunter end up meeting?
Well, the first few chapters of the book, it's kind of like you had said earlier, a lot of people are interested in the relationship and how we met. And the media has put such a narrative on it that what people don't understand is that in this book, Out of the Shadows, it describes that relationship, and it's everything from the relationship to the pregnancy to the paternity suit, and everything behind the scenes is so much more than the media could have ever even imagined. But I mean, they tried to put their own narrative on it. I actually met Hunter at Rosemont Seneca, which was his firm. And it was at the House of Sweden. And I met him at, I say an after party, but it really wasn't a party. It's just, people casually hanging out, drinking. They've, been out to clubs or something, and they're just kind of sitting around casually talking and whatnot, before people that don't want to go home, right? They're not tired. And I was invited by a friend who was invited, and she wasn't even invited by him. She was invited by someone else that was going to be there. And there weren't a whole lot of people there, but as I walked to the bathroom, and I talk throughout the book about Hunter's demons, and he's been very candid about his addiction. And Hunter was in a dark place when I met him, and throughout our relationship, he was in that dark place. But I actually met him on my way to the bathroom, and he was in the back room. And I talk about how I come through the door, and I see him standing there, and he's in these parrot boxer briefs, and he's at this desk that's lit, just by a lamp. And it's like, hey, how are you? And I'm Hunter Biden, and he says his name, and we go on into this discussion. And there's all this crack paraphernalia just right there laid out on the table. And with everything that he's consuming between that and vodka and stuff, you would think this guy could not be able to hold a conversation with you. And I stayed there and I talked to him all night. And I know you look back and you're like, why did you not run? And I talk about the eyes are the windows to the soul, William Shakespeare said. And from the very moment that I glanced into his eyes, there was so much. So you could tell he was so complex, very intelligent. And people, you see all these leaked photos from the laptop, and they're like, how is this guy intelligent? Well, he's very intelligent. He could sit there and hold a conversation with you, and witty. And he had this sarcasm about him, but he acted like he genuinely cared. Like his how are you was like, leaning in, how are you? He was invested in the conversation, invested in you. He made you seem like you mattered, nothing else in the room did, or nobody else did. And now looking back, it was probably a deflection to get the spotlight so much off of him and to put it on, someone else, so you don't recognize all this stuff that he's doing.
Okay, yeah, it's like uh, we all see him in a different light based
Oh
off
yeah.
of the media, the laptop,
Hmm.
but all of this is taking place before all of that drama, and so
Hmm.
you're probably meeting a different Hunter Biden than what we think we understand about him. Um, How long was your relationship? Was it short? Was it over a long period of time?
I found out I was pregnant over a year after I'd met him. And we started off as friends, and even to the point sometimes he'd tell people, I was his best friend. And I would do the same. And I talk about, throughout the book in the dark chapters where I'm in a dark place and I'm pregnant, I miss my friend. Like I miss having him there. But over that span of, that time that was lasted over a year, just the relationship part, um, addicts come and go, and he would be there, and then he'd be there for 3 weeks, and then he'd go missing for a week. And I can remember one time he went missing for a couple weeks, and there's a story in the book. And he shows up at my apartment and he's like, look at my socks, I got these socks because they made me think of you. And one of my favorite quotes was, not all those that wander are lost. I was like, well, you could have fooled me. Where the hell have you been the last 2 weeks? Like, I haven't seen you, I haven't heard from you. And Hunter was one of those, you couldn't get in touch with him unless he wanted you to, or he would get in touch with you. It was kind of one of those deals. But it was very on and off throughout that entire year.
Okay. I have family that struggles with drug addiction. It can make you a completely different person. Your behavior, your intentions, the promises you make when you're on drugs versus your
Right.
commitment when you're off. So I understand some of that to a degree. You're very open. He's very open about his struggle with drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there was a part of you that hoped you could help him or heal
Yes.
him? I ask because I see this a lot. My wife does relationship coaching and intimacy coaching. And that is something that she brings up to me regularly, that, oh, wow, this person is hoping that they can change this person or heal them. Was that happening between the two of you?
Yes, and I talk, because a lot of people don't know me. I've been in the shadows, and this is coming out of the shadows, right? And so people don't know me. They don't know my personality or the way I was brought up. But I talk about my dad and how he has this empathy for other people, and that's something that I feel like I got from him. And from the moment I met Hunter, I had this empathy for him. And, I say that I wanted to help him. And there's a lot of guilt throughout the book that I have because I also feel like I enabled him. And, there would be a couple times because I would be around, during this addiction, and not ever just be like, stop and be stern or anything, because I felt like if I was stern with him, then he would just never speak to me again. And I wanted him in my life. I cared about him and I loved him. And I know that sounds crazy because people think, if you loved him, you would have done what you could to make him stop. And Hunter and I had those conversations. And Hunter would tell you that this was his addiction and nobody could make him stop but himself. And he would stop when he wanted to, and he wasn't ready. And
Yeah.
so it was a lost cause.
Yeah. I have found uh, intelligent drug addicts are some of the best salespeople in the world. They're incredibly persuasive.
Very,
They
very good.
use intellect, emotion, pain against you in order to help them, buy them something, put them up for one more night, whatever it is. So unless you've dealt with somebody like that, you don't understand just how persuasive they can be on,
Hmm.
playing on your emotions and playing on you as a good person, that you're like,
Absolutely.
wait a minute, I love you, therefore I should help you. And I love you, but I also know that you need to stop. And it's hard to know which direction
Absolutely.
they're pushing you at
And
times.
I think that this book shines light on that because I don't think that a whole lot of people understand that. But there are lots of people out there that have, been impacted by addiction, whether they were addicted or they were the addict themselves, or they cared about somebody that was addicted. And I it sheds a little light there in the beginning about how, caring for someone who's suffering from addiction. And I'd never been around it before until Hunter. And so I'd never seen it close up and personal, and it was different. And so I think the first part of this book, it does shed a lot of light on what it's like to love somebody with addiction. And people are like, how could you give him this grace, and how can you forgive him? And I I have throughout everything. It's constant. There was always that hope for recovery and that hope that, he would come around. And people don't talk enough about that, what it's like to love somebody that is undergoing, addiction issues.
Yeah. It's a complex issue. I'm a part of a mastermind group in Phoenix, and one of their big focuses on addiction recovery. Now, I've never drank or had drug issues myself, but I see the different entrepreneurs that I deal with, and it's real. It can really
Hmm.
grab a hold of you and dig its way into your body to a point where it's really hard to get out of that situation. What what was Hunter's reaction when you let him know, uh, I'm pregnant? We're having this baby. How did that go down?
Well, so, I'd known Hunter, like I said, over a year at that point, and we'd been on and off so much. And, throughout the book, you also see that, I bring some friends around Hunter, and friends that I trust. Friends that I trust will, keep his addiction a secret from tabloids or, people who would try to hurt him, because Hunter thought that he was, the black sheep of his family and a disappointment. And it was scandal after scandal. And I go back to that empathy and that love that I had for him, that, I wasn't going to have anyone around him that would give him another scandal. And then I turned out to be one. But what was the question? I'm sorry. I got to talking
Oh,
about
just
that. I got off
that's
track.
no, that's okay. His reaction to finding out you were
Yes.
pregnant with Navy.
So I ended up actually, like I said, I'd known him for over a year at that point, and bringing these friends around him. There was one in particular that I talk about, and she was around both of us a lot. And I trusted her, Hunter trusted her, and she became like a little sister to him. And I say little sister, but she's my age. But I actually took her with me, and because I was scared. And when I found out I was pregnant, it was, oh my God, why? Now I'm going to be another scandal to him. And I was so upset. And I talk about, I grew to love him and to care about him, but I knew him as Hunt. That's what we called him. He was Hunt. And, he was somebody we could joke with and have fun with. But you hear all these conspiracies. And I say in the book, I wasn't afraid of Hunt, but I was scared of Hunter Biden. And that's solely, I won't say that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but those conspiracies are out there, that when you become a scandal in the political world, you disappear or something will happen to you, or the worst. And so I was terrified, and I took that mutual friend that him and I both trusted the most with us, or with me, to see him at his house in Annapolis. He was renting out at the time, and it was right there by the Chesapeake Bay. It had the most beautiful views. And um, she kind of walks off to the bathroom, and I'm sitting there with him, and I'm like, I tell people all the time, it's if you're a Friends fanatic, Friends TV show, it's back to like when Rachel tells Ross that she's pregnant. She says, hey Hunt, I'm pregnant. That's what I told him. And he just kind of looks at me, and he's like shocked, and he's not saying anything. And I said, and it's yours. And I'm gonna let you process that. And I just kind of sit back, and I'm just watching him. And then he snaps out of it. He's like, honey, I know it's mine. I know it's mine. He's like, have you decided? Like, what are you gonna do? What do you want to do? Just know that I'll respect whatever decision you make as a woman. And regardless, whichever decision that is, I'll be there for you physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally. Very, very supportive, right there to my face in that moment. And I spent the rest of that day with him, and he was even laughing and joking around, and almost excited about it. And then gradually after that, he starts disappearing, and I say that's probably the point in time when our relationship ended.
Okay. Oh, interesting. You mentioned that you were protective of who you brought around him
Mhm.
because you didn't want to create a scandal. And then I think I heard you right say, then you became the scandal,
Right. and
right?
and that's, I talk about throughout the pregnancy, I get in this really dark place. And it was hard for me because Hunter was somebody that like I said, I loved, and I believed him when he told me he loved me. And I knew how much it hurt him to be a scandal, and all the different things that had come out about him with the Navy discharge and the Hallie situation. And I knew how it hurt him to be a disappointment to his family and all these scandals. And I wanted to protect him at all costs. And then I felt like I had let him down because he trusted me. And he loved me, so I thought. And I felt like I had let him down by becoming another scandal to him. And that's why, my initial plan was to go to Arkansas and just not tell anyone who the father was other than my family. We would keep it a secret, and nobody would know about it. And that was the entire pregnancy. I came home to Arkansas and I kept it a secret because I thought I was protecting him. And then I have a child, and you become a mother, and it's like, someday when she asks who her father is, how do I look her in the eye and tell her I can't tell you? Or 15 years down the road, what if she's like, that was my dad and you never gave me the opportunity to know him? And I didn't want to take that from her. And that's the process that it took to file a paternity suit. I didn't file it instantly. It took time because I thought, is this the right thing to do for my daughter? And talking about scandal, there's also a chapter in there during our relationship where I thought Hunter was going to overdose, and his life was in my hands one night. And I didn't call. I sit there and I had the phone in my hand, but I knew if I called 911 and the ambulance or somebody to come, I knew that there would be another Hunter scandal. And that's the only reason I didn't. I sat there and I watched him breathe the entire night, and I prayed and I cried right beside him the entire night with that phone in my hand. And occasionally he'd let out like a snore, and I'd let out a sigh of relief that, he's still breathing. And I watched him breathe that entire night. And the only reason that I didn't call was because I didn't want to be the reason for that scandal on him. And so then months later, I get pregnant. And now I have become that scandal. And I felt like I'd let him down. And that's what led to such a dark place during my pregnancy.
Yeah. It's always hard when you feel like someone did jujitsu on you, right? Like they used your goodness against you in order to get what they want. Another scandal that you've been open about, I hope it's okay that I ask this, is, it comes out that he's sleeping with his dead brother's
Mhm.
wife.
Mhm.
Was that during the time that you were pregnant, before, after?
That was actually way before I was pregnant. Hunter and I had seen each other just a few times. And Hunter has a way of charming you into, either believing what he wanted you to believe at that time. And so, if all this is true that was coming out in the media, you know, the first time a friend sent it to me, and she knew that I had been on some dates with Hunter, and I had been seeing him. And she messaged me about, the tabloid saying that he was in this relationship with his brother's widow. And again, I knew how, Hunter felt like a disappointment to his family. So the first thing I did was send him a message. And, it wasn't hateful. It wasn't, how could you do this and then see me at the same time? It was nothing like that, because Hunter and I hadn't, made a commitment to each other or anything at that point. We'd just seen each other a few times. And I sent him a message, just checking on him and making sure that he was okay. And he sent me a message the next day. And then, within time, he calls me, wants to see me again. And I actually had my friend that, I trusted around us with me. And we go see him, and he's like, I was the only one that checked on him during that time. And he was thankful for that. The media makes it seem so much more than what it is. And I actually, met Hallie, and, he led me to believe that, they were kind of in this more of an open sort of relationship. And when I met her, it didn't really seem like they were in a relationship. It it seemed more of like the media had portrayed this. They might have crossed a line, and they found themselves in a really dark place because she had lost her husband, and he had lost his brother, and they got addicted to some things, and that line was crossed, and after it was crossed you can't go back, and I think they just had to kind of go with it. And I talk about throughout the book their relationship. I even had to mediate, a few of their arguments where they seem very, very toxic for one another. Very toxic.
Yeah. During his court hearing, she came in as a witness, and she had said that he had worked to get her addicted to drugs. Do you think that drug involvement led to them having a relationship that most would deem inappropriate?
Um, yes, I'll say this. I don't think that he would work to get anyone addicted to anything because he was pretty big on that. Like if you have an addictive personality, don't do this or you can't do that. Like he really did. I know that sounds crazy, but he really did try to look out for the people around him. But also, I could see where she would, openly try it or something because, he was doing it. And I'm sure that's his coping mechanism. He's an addict. So, he probably used that to cope with the loss of Bo, and she engaged in it, and I'm sure things went from there.
Yeah. Okay, I know, the media has made a big deal about the Bidens, secret grandchild, the Bidens' unacknowledged grandchild. They did eventually acknowledge that Navy is connected to them. Have they made any effort to meet her, invite her to the White House? No.
No, no, they haven't. And, I talk about, the first few chapters are my relationship with Hunter, and some of those can be fun, and some of those stories are heartbreaking. Some are great. The pregnancy, a lot of it's more heartbreaking, and then there's more heartbreak, and then there's rage, and there's this fury that I have, and I say, they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but I disagree. I think that hell hath no greater fury than a mother whose baby is being scorned. And after the paternity suit was there was scientific certainty. The DNA test, I took it as well, and it was like 99.999% Hunter's and like 98% mine. like she's obviously his. And like the stalkings at the White House in this book, you see how having a child like that be publicly unacknowledged, and the matriarch of a family, and able to do this, it's really really hard to deal with, especially when Navy's growing older and she wants to know who her dad is. And I've tried to teach her to be open-minded, to be resilient, and from the beginning. And so I told her who her dad is. And well, how come he can't come see me? And it's, well, he's a really busy man. And it's, I tell her about who her grandfather is and what his role is, and she's like, oh, well, that's why they can't come see me. They're so busy helping other people, but someday when they're done, they'll come see me. And I talk about how hard it is to see that little girl, and to see the love that she has for them, and that she yearns for from them, and then for her to be publicly unacknowledged over and over and over again. It's not a slap in my face. I'm not kin to them in any way, but it's a slap in hers, and she doesn't even know it yet. And that itself is distasteful. It's hurtful. There's a lot of words I can use, but I know there are certain times throughout this book when you will feel my rage, and the fury that I have towards that.
Okay.
I'll never understand it. I don't understand how a child isn't just a feather in your cap. Acknowledging a child and loving a child.
Yeah. I have to imagine, some of these politicians, you look in, some of the most corrupt people are politicians. And I only say that because many of them spend so much time and effort protecting their image. I believe that's what's
Mm.
going on here. The Bidens are trying to protect their image. We're grandpa and grandma Joe and Jill, and we've got this great family, and we lost a war veteran to cancer because of chemicals burned in Iraq, and we've got a son that's overcome addiction, and but at the end of the day, like you say, this is a child,
It is.
and to ignore a child is pretty pathetic. And
It is.
I'm hoping that as the Bidens step down and leave the White House, that it may open doors for your daughter, because I believe grandparents and parents are so important in a child's life.
Absolutely.
Do you think that could happen as they step away from political limelight?
I don't know. I don't know because my whole thing is, you ran this campaign knowing that you had a grandchild out there, and you were elected and you had 4 years in office, and why not acknowledge a grandchild that's yours, or a child, and Hunter acknowledge a child that was his, because that would humanize him. That would humanize the first family. That engaging and acknowledging a child, like, your polls would go up. So I don't quite understand, because it's 2024, and people have children out of wedlock all the time, and it's something that would absolutely be a feather in their cap and humanize them. So I don't know if they will stepping out of of the spotlight. You would have thought they would when they were in it.
Yeah.
So I'm not real sure. I can't answer that question. I don't know.
I do have to say that some of this could be the fact that the mainstream media is mean. And let me give you an example, right? You and I would think embracing a child, like let's say Joe and Jill said, "Oh my gosh, we just found out our family's even bigger. We've got a beautiful grandchild. We want to have that relationship. We're going to protect her from the limelight because it can be ugly, but privately, we're going to have a great relationship." You would think that would be the case, right? But at the RNC, Donald Trump has, just had an assassination attempt on his life. And as his son, Eric Trump, is speaking, one of the cute little blonde granddaughters, walks up to Trump and sits on his lap. And it was adorable. And, the left-leaning media says, "How dare the Trumps try to humanize him? He's as bad as Hitler, hiding behind a child. And this was a setup. This was
Oh
to
my
make him
goodness.
look good." Yeah, you can go back and Google this stuff. So
See,
that's
that's
why I say is the mainstream media is really ugly, and perhaps the Bidens are going, "Wait a minute, we couldn't do this if we wanted to, because the media is so mean to presidential families." I don't know. It's just a
well,
thought I had.
one, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, despite whether you're for Trump or you're not, he's a father, he's a grandfather. I mean, politics aside, they're human beings. Political figures are human beings. They have families, they have, people that love them. And so it's absolutely crazy that the media did that. But, I do know that, like, with the stalkings at the White House, and the times that, Joe apparently said, he had, what was it, 6 grandchildren when he has 7, or 7 when he has it, whatever the count is, I don't even know. But the unacknowledgement got a lot of, I think, media attention. They were always like, no. And then, there was even that lady, I believe she was New York Times. I don't know her name, but she gave that article where it's 7 grandchildren, Mr. President, not 6. And she talked about how she knew him personally, and she'd seen the emotion and the heartbreak that he had after losing his daughter. I believe she was 9 months old in a car accident with his wife. And at that time, when she wrote the article, she's like, and you have a little granddaughter in Arkansas that you're not welcoming with open arms. And why? I've seen how much you love your family and the hurt that you have on the family members that you've lost. Why are you not accepting this one? And to me, it doesn't make sense. So whether, I think the mainstream media, either way you look at it, is going to have their, own opinions. And there's going to be the good press and there's going to be the bad press, either way. But I would think that, politics aside, you'd be a grandfather.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, we're coming up on our time ceiling here. Are you worried that Hunter is going to be sent to prison? I know you mentioned in past interviews that things he did during his addiction are now catching up to him. and he may face some of those consequences. Have you worried about him going to prison?
Um, yes. I mean, that's always a worry when you're the mother of his child, one of his children. And Navy and him, towards the end of the book, there's that little redemption where, they start building a relationship through Zoom calls. And Navy adores him, and she loves him. And, the look on people talk about, how could you let him get away with lowering child support? Well, all the money in the world isn't worth not having a parent. And I had a very influential father in my life, and mother, and I had great relationships with my parents, and I would hope, that I could give Navy that same opportunity. I don't care if it is through a Zoom call. If there's that small void that can be filled through a Zoom call, and then, from the first time she saw him, the first time they Zoom called, and there he is, hey, Navy. And, I tell Navy before she gets on the Zoom, Navy, you can tell him, you can call him anything you want to. If you want to call him Hunter, he's okay with it. He will be okay with it. And I was like, you can call him Hunter, you can call him Dad, you can call him whatever you want. And, as soon as he pops up on the screen, the look on her face, I'll never forget it. And it was just, she was so happy. And that's something that she'd yearned for. And the first thing she said when her face lights up is, "Hey, Daddy." And she was just so happy and so engaged. And she wanted to know his favorite color, and she wanted to know everything about him. And that itself, the way that she adores and loves her father, even if it's just that small, void through a Zoom call. Maybe it's not a hug after work, or, a weekend with him. But if a Zoom call, and it makes her day, her week, then yeah, I would hope that, that continues. And I'd hate to see him go to prison and
Yeah.
have to have that conversation with my daughter that, all that's being taken away now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully that relationship continues to heal. I know there's a lot more stories in Out of the Shadows, my life, inside the wild world of Hunter Biden. I'm going to put a direct link down below. I appreciate you coming on. I wish nothing
Yeah.
but good things for you and your
Well, thank you.
daughter. And I'll put those links down below. If people want to follow you or stay connected online, what is the best place for them to do that?
Well, I make my Instagram public, which is also Out of the Shadows, because I've always been such a private person, and I've always kept it private and locked up. But over the last year, I've, unlocked it, and I've let it be public for everyone. And that's probably the best place to view my content and what's going on with me. And it's Lunden, Lunden town.
Okay.
I believe there might be an underscore.
Okay, I'll find it and put a direct link so that people don't have to look that up. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for writing this
Yeah,
book.
thank you.
I think we're all curious. At the end of the day, we're all just humans walking each other home.
That's
Life can be
true.
great. It can also be hard. And anyway, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I hope
Well,
you have a
thank
great
you.
rest of your day.
Well, thank you. And the book comes out August 20th, which is a week before my daughter's birthday. And the sole dedication is to her, obviously. So, I don't know what better gift I can give my daughter than to know that her mother stood 10 toes down and told her story when the odds were against her. And someday, if I'm not here, she'll have it in her hands to read for herself.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm sure you're a great mother. Thank you again
Thank
for
you.
coming on. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.